A media agency 5 years in the failing. An analysis of why my startup is still losing money. It's a bird, it's a plane, but mostly it's not flying. I grew up becoming interested in music and media creation and started studying engineering until I failed. And then I started studying management and technology until I failed. Then I decided it was time to start a business, turning my non-academic passions into money. You guessed it, it depends on how one defines failure. A business ideally makes money. Some calculations, if I want to earn a reasonable salary after taxes of about 2,500 euros per month, which would still put me more on the broke side of life, I would have to pay myself from my company basically about twice as much in order to account for the taxes, healthcare, etc. If I worked at another company, then at least in Germany, the employer would pay about 50% of all social deductions. So it's 5,000, but I also have to pay myself back the money I invested in the company, which at this point is 11,000 euros plus minus a few bucks. Now, at this point, it might make sense to give a little more context. I wanted to make money monetizing my creative skills. A little bit of photography, a little bit of possible videography and video editing, and aspirations to share thoughts on my journey and on this ride. In total, business revenue of about 10k monthly seems to be about right to then halve it 2 times to arrive at 2.5k of net personal income. In case I need more to pay for insurance, rent, potentially achieving goals of financial freedom, also counting in carrying a lot more costs for future family, children, their planned investment plans, bypassing the fact that every child already might cost a quarter to $500,000. Then there is also inflation. So to sum it up, even though that sounds ridiculous, how am I gonna? About 10,000 seems to be the minimum, given also future costs for an accountant, help with tax, continued hardware updates, potential upgrades, future services, Riverside for podcast, for example, which is a software. 10,000 seems to be a reasonable starter number. This puts my hourly rate at a minimum of 10,000 divided by 40, multiplied by 4, so 40 for the work week and then 4 for the 4 work weeks in a month, at 62.5 euros per month, if I say it's euros. This also means if I offer any services in the future, selling myself over time on average for less than, let's say, 50 bucks an hour, doesn't exactly help me reach the, in my view, necessary financial goals, both personal and professional. Technically, I started this business as a self-employment sole proprietorship on the 1st of July 2018. That's when I registered the company. Or was I just freelancing? Yes and no. In simple, as soon as you earn any affiliate fees, commissions, or want to sell something that is not just your mental work, it's a bird, it's a plane, it's a sole proprietorship. To keep my private money somewhat private and have to declare private and not to have to declare private bankruptcy if someone decides to sue me or decided to sue me, let's say for copyright, maybe I just picked a thumbnail for YouTube from the web. I wanted to start a limited liability company, meaning creating a legal entity that is not me, because otherwise I am liable. If Google is sued for millions and billions by the EU, Sundar Pichai doesn't have to fear losing his home. But till now, with a sole proprietorship, also, if I would have chosen to just freelance, which in the German tax system at least is treated differently, think of a lawyer, doctor, then I have to fear to lose my non-existent home I rent. The ideal legal structure would be a GmbH, but till now I haven't. Still on the never-ending to-do list. Practically, I already started dabbling a bit earlier in how I could make money. Photographing for friends and family, sometimes paid with free drinks, a mansion in LA, you guessed it, etc. Then I figured I could try to sell some of my pictures. It's called stock media. Instead of a client coming to you, then you servicing the client, you pre-plan and record for multiple clients. Basically, everybody who wants to buy your pictures on one of the websites, stock platforms you upload to. This side of a business made a few $100 until now. Revenue, not counting in the costs, and also I was mostly editing and uploading pictures I already had taken for years, often when traveling. What pictures did I sell? Random pictures, tried making a few backgrounds, editorial ones you would find in newspapers and articles. Never did go much into actually trying to take pictures for stock specifically, besides this being the only side of the business which actually made some money. Reasons. I could have gone in 2 directions, photographing things or concepts like earnings, recession, intermittent fasting, or people. People want to see people. It seems at least. At least. Now, on the things side, I would have to manage the things I photograph, or alternatively, create digital images without things. Since I also wanted to be a minimalist, being able to travel, maybe in the future, since I hadn't much yet, keeping things around just to maybe photograph them, or take pictures of them, someday required space and management of these items. I just didn't want to have to think of every single possible use of an item in the future. Items I wanted to get rid of, for example, but couldn't. I even thought about getting multiple shelves into my studio just to keep the props around. In short, I did not want to deal with these items in any professional or private life. In my professional or private life. In regards to people, they have rights. If you want to photograph and sell pictures of people, you need their permission in written form to be uploaded to every platform along with the pictures. I loved in-person photo shoots, but failed to come up with a frame for shooting these. Till then, I only did portrait shoots of mostly friends of mine. I sometimes asked them to sign such contracts, but it soon began to feel like a burden on these relationships with my friends, me again asking to sign yet another contract despite us not having communicated otherwise. It also made me feel like a sneaky Pete, always out for the potential money that could be earned from this or the other picture. Of course, I didn't upload images of people without their written permission, but what about the hand of a relative holding, for example, a bunch of flowers? And it became difficult to decide whether this was now business or not, since I would sort through all my catalog in order to find pictures I figured might sell. For this reason, also only did photography in RAW, a more editable file format, often 20 megabytes a picture instead of 2 to 3 megabytes, like your smartphone would. I also worked with a notebook in Lightroom to edit the pictures, which whatever I tried just lagged and lagged. I could have edited pictures probably a lot faster, but couldn't. So I thought about getting a desktop, an external GPU, or paying models upfront, or time for print, where you just give the other person the pictures, the prints, but all of which would have required even more upfront investments. Now, to be fair, most of the things I bought over the years as business expenses were items I would have bought otherwise anyway, since I still would have liked to have a camera, or a phone, or a notebook, or a USB hub, or a mouse. Maybe I wouldn't have bought my studio lights, but I intentionally also try to keep these items as few as possible, allowing me as currently renting a small studio apartment in the city for about 450 euros, which I use as my studio. So I began to think, what could I create that would not require contacting, messaging, or calling people, big optimization responsibility, also potentially often not that efficient, allow me to work wherever, whenever I wanted and could, not require further material investments, props for stock images, drone for aerial footage, stock video footage, but only require what I otherwise already would have. My notebook, my monitor, some lights, audio interface and microphone, Zoom H6, and my phone. Ideas I could somehow make money off. Ideas I could somehow make money off ideas. Now you could also say a stock image is totally digital, therefore also an idea, or the just digital, not recorded in the real world version of that. Digital images renders backgrounds. But with my one notebook, my Spectra, not to begin with my previous notebook, I was somewhat limited by its mobile graphics card. I was frustrated, had been for years. Taking pictures was so much fun, but the post-production just was so time-hungry and simply inefficient. The idea was born. I would become a creator. Not to mention the now almost infamous word influencer, which many associate with people profiting off of their looks while being 365 on holidays and endorsing, let's say, suboptimal brand deals. So already in 2017, I registered a few domains. It had taken me years, I also studied and did other things that turned out to be not that conclusive, to come up with the rigid framework of what to share, in which form to share, on which platform to share. Questions like, if I post a YouTube video, can I also post it on Facebook? If I write a blog post, should I post it on WordPress? Should I buy domains and self-host? If I make YouTube videos, then doesn't this also require a lot of post-production? Should I show my face on camera? Should I talk in my mother tongue, German, or in English? But my English was terrible, so first improve my English. Should I post everything on one channel? Should I name this one channel after myself? Registering the domain was not the first step. I first had to come up with names for channels. Names that ideally were not trademarked, not copyrighted, didn't exist, did have free social media handles, did have a free domain, where nonetheless short could be interpreted, pronounced ideally only in one clear way, would maybe also indicate that what the channel was about. So I came up with a few, registered a few domains, and by that point had my first real monthly expense, about 15 to 20 euros a month for the domain rental and server space. I began writing in preparation for my A-levels. My German teacher somewhat encouraged me after I tried the free writing format. Even wrote a commentary in my A-levels. You might not believe what the given topic was: YouTube and core. So I cannot remember what specifically. So with my provided newfound, but I cannot remember what specifically. So, with my newfound passion, but also absolutely terrible handwriting, I began to blog. I wrote a few articles in German, then a few in English, but it was hard. It took hours and proofreading and editing, so my writing process was really slow. I began to post these blog posts at that time, already beginning in 2017, but again, so many questions. Should I post German and English content to the same site? Should I translate the post? Should I create a second blog with the same stuff in English? Simultaneously, I began to upload more to stock and try to systematize the whole thing, standardizing processes, coming up with some content plan. But I also wanted to record a video, but didn't have a microphone, which would have cost money. Then I ran out of drive space. I just felt like an absolute idiot whenever I tried to record something, barely able to pronounce words in proper English, no presentation skills, no plan behind what would happen to that video. I did not know how to structure the recording, the posting, the scheduling of the posting. Here, for example, I got my new monitor, and I decided to create an unboxing movie. My family asked, where did that money come from? I recorded it, but never cut it, because I did not know how. It would have taken hours to cut it. So embedded in the blog post we have here a picture of the different files I recorded, which I still have, and I still haven't done anything with them because I just don't know what to do with them. There is no framework behind, because I did not know how. It would have taken hours just to cut it. I also couldn't continue to record this much footage without seriously investing into more hard drives. How would I then manage all of these hard drives? What speeds did they need to have? Should I therefore look into an external GPU once again and connect it with Thunderbolt? Or is USB-C 3.1 enough, or does it need to be 3.2? Should I stop unpacking just in order to film once my phone battery is recharged because it ran out of battery? In which format should I record? MOV, like my Canon 70D put out, MP4, like the phones. How would I convert these files from my camera? Should I invest in a good camera and microphone? The monitor I got and filmed that video with turned out to be broken. I had waited like a child for Christmas for this monitor, unpacked it, and then sat there with a big Spider-Man screen. I actually just took these year-old files and merged them, like I now do with all my other videos, one single output file. Post or delete it, but realized I cannot embed them here in the blog post as a video, so therefore the only way to not delete these files would now be in the existing framework, either one of two ways. Either store it in my private footage library, video footage without audio commentary, that I can use for screen recordings on phone, for example, or as embedded footage, which I don't do. But since I do not cut or overlay footage till now, but only record everything live in camera, I could also turn this into something by adding voiceover. It's just that this isn't any properly established workflow. In other words, I don't know, and leave these files as test files on my drive. So I could use my Canon 70D, but then I would not have good audio. So back then, now I have a different camera, which I will mention in a few sentences. Audible audio. Since the lens focus was too loud and picked up the internal microphone, I could use an external microphone, but I also didn't have one. The ones used by other YouTubers cost around 350 euros. I just had bought drives and a monitor and wasn't making any money. So should I use my phone? My HTC One A9 also didn't have the best mic. If I stand a few feet or 1 to 2 meters away from the phone, then I basically have almost inaudible audio. Things intensified. My Canon lens, 300 euros, broke. Then my Canon 70D, 700 euros, broke. Repair would have cost me as much as 400 just for the body of the Canon 70D, not for the lens. So I was without the camera, without the lens, and even with both not being able to record proper video with audio. I also frequently went down random rabbit holes. Oh, I could do this or this. The ideal point on the exploit trade-off was unclear to me. I then had an epiphany. after already having bought a refurbished Canon EOS 80D for about 800 euros. A few things came together. Year-long frustrations with carrying the 70D around while traveling, weight, risk of getting it stolen, damaging lenses when bumping into something or someone, me spending 800 euros, the fact also my two lenses weren't working properly, one broken, the other one's focus monitor broke over the years, also basically unusable, me somewhat needing a new phone. So I figured, one, I could instead get a smaller camera. I had an eye on the Canon EOS M50, despite the downside of this being slightly more entry-level, without a mirror mechanism, but only digital. Second, and bet on the best phone on the market at that time, 2018 or 2019, the Galaxy S10 from Samsung. Bought it for about 700 euros, refurbished, tried it out and was amazed. The plan had worked out. The front as well as the back camera were decent. The back then new portrait mode, so the back then had a new portrait mode, was also available in a few instances later for the front camera. First only for photo, then later also for video. I could get rid of my camera bag while traveling, only if also assuming giving up taking high quality stock images and videos, which I had tried previously. The microphones and the speakers were the best I ever heard and listened to on iPhone. My previous HTC Desire I, which I broke, also already had decent stereo speakers as well as a super crispy microphone. But again, I broke it. It also was a little big. That weekend I noticed things could become a lot easier. I also had started yet another study program, economic science this time, which I attended an entrepreneurship seminar in Frankfurt of. For sure felt super important. I even created a new channel that weekend. One where I would write, talk about story, movies, etc. And in the evening after the whole seminar went, I propped up my phone and started talking business. I recorded basically a few of the first videos I would ever post. I only had to speak somewhat audibly and the sound was good enough. One video even was up until recently, but since it was in German and I later down the line would decide that the default for all channels I would have should be English in order to reach a bigger audience, despite my language skills decreasing my language ability at that time, possibly by 50% or more. This all was in 2019. Now it's 3.5 years later. And basically, it's actually longer than this. It's actually almost 4.5 years later. And basically no channel or blog I created has reached any level of audience or significance that would be capable of generating an income stream for this, my business. In the meantime, text generated by large language models is generating better writing on common themes that I could create. This channel here is about this business, about how I started and how it's going. My business is still unprofitable, and in the meantime, in 2022, I did one client photo shoot. A friend of mine wanted some pictures for her graduation, or their graduation, because it was actually 3 friends. Recently did my first voiceover gig on Fiverr, despite this hurting one of my core principles of this business, that everything should be scalable, only being produced for a general audience. In total, the total revenue doesn't even exceed $1,000 yet. I had to invest private cash multiple times in order to keep the business, or simpler, just the bank account, from going to zero. I still am renting my domains, other business costs and income. For years I had the Adobe Lightroom photography cloud, about 150 euros a year. My domain's server space now costs about 10 euros a month. Exactly 10 euros a month, actually. I got paid by a few stock agencies over the years, and some about 450 euros. When dabbling previously and also posting my blog posts to other sites, mostly Medium, I made a few euros from Medium, since one post had a few hundred impressions back when you could enter the Medium Partner Program right away. For 2 to 3 years I had a stock image software subscription. The software allowed me to view my entire stock portfolio on multiple platforms, see which images generated income, etc. On average about 80 to 100 euros a year. My business bank account also costs money, 3.95 euros a month. Other than that, I mostly bought maintained hardware. After some time with just my Galaxy S10 was missing taking pictures, at least for private occasions more and more. Also the pictures of these events were missing, because if I didn't take them, nobody did, really. Nobody really replaced my function as kind of the photographer of the family, only partially. Also thought multiple times about doing client work, photo, video shoots with a camera. Therefore bought the fairly reasonable, notably smaller Canon EOS M50 with 2 lenses. The body costs about 450 millimeters, about 80 euros. New, and the 18 to 135 zoom, about 150 euros. Then I also needed adapters, since the Canon has another mount than the lenses, which I bought in the old Canon mount. Should I decide to upgrade to a EF mount camera, then I could use these lenses again. Bought a Zoom H6, a microphone, and audio interface. A new mouse, an external keyboard broke my phone screen and had to replace it. Destabilized the USB charging port on that phone while working for 3 months for a few hours as a week as a bike courier, equaling business flourishing. Bought another refurbished Galaxy S10. Now have both these phones and use one as my camera work phone, the other one as my private phone. Also bought a loop station in order to increase the chances of me either doing live gigs someday as a musician or being able to record songs, tracks, improvisations with multiple tracks, but in the same live format I would later come up. Also studio lights, chargers, cables, adapters, etc. So why did nothing take off yet? It mostly can be boiled down to 2 variables: quantity and quality. Quantity: I didn't write enough blog posts, create videos. Reasons: beginning in 2019, my body fat was somehow higher than what I was used to, which probably somewhat reduced my recording activity or my recording likelihood. I also mostly failed to have a coherent strategy. Here and there I created an Instagram live for my music channel, for example, only to then have 1 view, another post that didn't fit anywhere, and a video file in 1080p I couldn't use anywhere. I did not yet establish a good workflow yet. The website backend took a lot of my time. In the beginning, the learning, then the managing. In addition, I always had somewhat pursued multiple things. Quality: I did not yet implement a strategy for long-term quality yet. In theory, I thought I could just create videos similar to the ones I watched. In practice, I could barely speak English, editing took hours, and I did not know how to store the files. What would happen if I then had gigabytes of footage for a single final video? I also had to realize the EOS M50's video was mostly not good. The Galaxy S10 did a better job, usually, at least without the lenses, without the better zooming of the lenses. Not to now judge my previous self and its content strategy from my own throne of having a few subscribers on TikTok, but quality is probably better approximated as a function of quantity. If you don't make, post any videos, quality doesn't matter exist. Wise YouTube guru. I also still needed to figure out the microphone situation. Eventually I discovered I could use the Zoom H6 either as a USB interface or directly with the headphone jack as audio, and the Galaxy would embed the audio directly into the file. How wonderful! Until my phone port became less and less stable and 50% of my videos had no audio. I also didn't exactly know how to go from idea to post in whatever form. Should I post this to Instagram, then with a photo? Which photo in which format? Should it be a text? Should it be a blog post? Should this blog post be simultaneously a YouTube video? Should I read it? Should I pretend to just say the thing I wrote or actually read it? Major step forward 1 was that my phone was somewhat decent at recording video. Major step forward 2, I later on would discover Notion and finally was able to properly track videos and on which platform the videos already were posted. Major step forward 3 was me deciding to try out TikTok. I would just create videos with the TikTok camera, edit them within TikTok. The TikTok camera is actually not existing, it's just the app recording through your normal phone camera. Only to realize, what about the fact the TikTok camera could not figure out exposure on Android phones? That it constantly bombarded me with videos. Should I only create videos that I could also use for other platforms? What then about TikTok replies, about TikTok's audio function? Can I use my with TikTok recorded edited shorts, then post these embedded with music to other platforms? But what about copyright? Then only videos without music? Questions over questions. But what TikTok did is a few things. It for some time allowed me to record video with multiple clips, but without the need for worrying about storing or editing these. Everything could be done on my phone, so editing and linked processing power was not a constraint on my workflow anymore. Finally, got me into making videos, mostly probably because it accessed a different mental frame. Before, for YouTube, everybody's gonna see this. All my friends will laugh at me. For TikTok, nobody's gonna watch this anyway. It also helped that nobody I knew had TikTok. A new place, a new chance. TikTok taught me that you can always try again. It doesn't matter that much whether something looks and feels like an MKBHD or a Casey Neistat video. Most of everybody also recorded there on their phones. If I, therefore, post more, I need a system, so I gave that some thought. That I eventually need to get off of TikTok. First of all, reducing the platform's risk, and second of all, the constant autoplay of videos slowly broke down my wall of defense until I eventually broke down. A system that would allow me to track files and videos. I decided I would go with the unique timestamp of recording. The one thing that couldn't exist twice, due to time being linear, therefore the timestamp being a never-ending count up, and me having one ID. I could just set as title. Also, it helped that I am just one thinking person, therefore there cannot be multiple IDs at the same time that have the same ID. A bold move to not write anything in the title. Who was I to do that? I then, after some time, decided to do 3 hashtags, the 3 most important ones sorted by relevance. So my title was basically the ID, and then 3 hashtags. My defense against TikTok eventually broke, despite what I heard before about TikTok. Despite me trying to avoid watching TikTok at all costs, I had no choice. At least it felt that way. If I wanted to post there, the only platform with any traction for things I created whatsoever, apart from a few views on blog posts, I needed to continue posting. So eventually, I spent nights sitting hunched down somewhere on the floor in the studio, wanting to sleep, wanting to do something else, time passing without me doing anything about the fact that one video kept playing after the other on TikTok. After I spent about a week that way, being able to fight it off like a plague, eventually the decision tree always looked the same. Wanna post videos, then open TikTok. I had to get out of there. I had binge-watched series before, nights, days, drowning my justified worry about where my life, studies, business were not going. But the only things that gave me traffic was the engine that also gave me headaches. For months, I had not stored any files, and even if I pre-recorded the files, due to no internet connection, for example, I deleted them afterwards, since I often would cut the beginning or end in TikTok, since the Galaxy S10 has about half a second of shutter, also on video, lag. I had to go cross-platform. Rumors about YouTube Shorts currently being tested, in some countries being developed as TikTok competitor, so at that time, came up. Instagram being somewhat unclear about their video Reels strategy. Facebook testing Reels in India. Basically a copy of Instagram Reels. What if I could post these shorts on multiple platforms? Exactly the same ones, the same video files. What would have to be fulfilled? A new standard. I would have to have all the files. I could not use any copyrighted music, even if different platforms had similar deals with the music industry. I couldn't risk copyright strikes or a certain part of my catalog not being transferable. To not do any responses, trends, etc. Despite the obvious downside of significantly lower traffic, I had a few videos with a few thousand plays, just responses from other viral videos of mine. Not of mine, but I responded to these viral videos. So beginning in mid-2021, I began downloading the files from TikTok in the beginning with watermarks, only to later on realize that this wasn't exactly the most brilliant of all ideas. The articles would come out revealing penalties on watermarked content, and despite the situation still being unclear, despite me already having scheduled and posted hundreds of shorts to YouTube in 2021, in the end, it all came down to the following question. If I owned one of these platforms, YouTube, Instagram, would I want to have watermark content from TikTok of a competitor on there? Obviously not. So I decided to delete thousands of views, in some on YouTube. Also, I had tested Instagram already, but then deleted all again. To download all of my TikToks with a TikTok download website. To delete hundreds of TikTok drafts, not otherwise stored, and I did not want to post them all at once. And you couldn't download them. So the only way you could have access to these TikToks would have been to post them all at once and then download them with the TikTok tool, which I didn't want to do. And therefore I deleted them. And to upload them once again, posting them daily despite the through passing of time or downside of videos not having aged that well. Either because of topics like this update just came out or me cringing at my past self. In 2022 then, I also decided to record longer videos in the same exact format, me talking into camera, screen records with voiceovers, or me walking around with voiceover. This now was not that hard. The only thing that changed is that I now wouldn't delete the video if I went over 60 seconds. Basically, YouTube videos. A few lines on why I decided to also do them in portrait, so in vertical instead of landscape format. A bet on maybe in the future having just one feed with videos, no matter the length, no matter the platform. Most videos are already consumed on phones. Without a stand, watching in landscape is pretty uncomfortable. But if the phone is in portrait, one can just hold the phone, no interruption besides the video. Being able to cut long form videos into short form with no cropping or adding random backgrounds. TikTok already again went ahead, introduced first 3-minute videos and then expanded it to 10 minutes. I already tested a few of the longer videos on TikTok and they seemed to do not that bad. Given the fact that the more a video includes, the less a viewer is statistically likely to be interested. But the reason I did not post all of these longs, I call them longs because it's an equivalent to shorts, to TikTok is because I also have a few that are longer than 10 minutes. I already searched a few times whether TikTok might have introduced more than 10 minutes of video length. I think my longest video is just shy of 2 hours, but no news there. Therefore, longs for now just on YouTube. But on YouTube, portrait videos without the thumbnail have a significant downside. No landscape thumbnail. I hoped YouTube would fix this eventually, but also introducing portrait frames for longer videos, not just for shorts. But nothing like this is in sight. They also could crop the portrait thumbnails to landscape, but that process would probably result in a few bad results, a few bad apples here and there, even though the metaphor doesn't fit here entirely. So I tried making a few thumbnails, but mostly I realized that I often, in the time I am making the thumbnail, could already have recorded multiple new shorts at the given quality of mostly me talking or even 1 to 2 longer videos. Without thumbnails, the long videos on YouTube are barely getting any traction. Still, as of now, reading this, YouTube also seemingly decided to standardize all videos into these 2 formats. 1. Normal, usually 16:9, but also other landscape formats, YouTube videos. Length from 60 seconds to infinity. 2. Shorts, usually 9:16, but also other portrait formats, basically TikTok's Reels, but on YouTube and notably on the same channel. For months, this was also something I didn't really know how to handle. Many big YouTubers already created Shorts channels, since YouTube for about a year just threw it all into the normal video page. So if you clicked in YouTube on videos, then there were all these shorts in the feeds of, for example, Mr. Beast. Therefore, many creators chose to not post the shorts on their main YouTube channel. Also, the separation in the backend would be useful, a filter to sort both content types. In the YouTube Studio app, you already have now a super clean separation between both, but not on YouTube Web. Let data speak. So inserted here, this I think is kind of relevant, is kind of my tracking Excel. So in terms of how many views and how many likes I have, this is kind of relevant. So at this point in time, I probably have around 1 million views in total among basically all channels, but I cannot really track it properly because TikTok doesn't give me access to all the data, only over the last 30 days or maybe 3 months, but not over the entire time like on YouTube, for example. And it's also kind of hard to manually track all the different things, and I haven't built something like with the YouTube API to automatically track this. TikTok does not display total views. On Instagram and Facebook, I deleted all test videos again. Practically don't use these sites. I basically waited until I could treat them as copy platforms, a platform that just is copied unified content from the original platform. For video, and after waiting for months, years, YouTube can now be the primary platform for both video types, and seems to simultaneously be the best one for both combined. YouTube does even publicly count total views. In the backend, you get watch hours, etc. Which means I can easily track data from YouTube. They even have an API which you could theoretically connect to Notion, for example. On Facebook and Instagram, I could even get total data across all channels. But again, I didn't begin to post there yet. Since Instagram and Facebook were still figuring out to which extent it would allow cross-posting, uploading to both sides from the backend, I waited till now to begin uploading my catalog, thousands of shorts on multiple channels, and to avoid another summer 2021 waste of scheduling, because I would delete the watermark shorts later, or a few months later be able to upload to Facebook and Instagram simultaneously, whereas before I am not. I think now it is actually possible, but I just didn't implement it yet because I just don't have time for that much backend work. None of the social media channels are on ad revenue yet. I have not reached the monetization criteria for content on any platform yet, apart from Medium, which paid out a few bucks and a few euros, until it also set the Medium partner limits slightly higher. In the beginning, YouTube Shorts also had a creator fund similar to Facebook, Instagram Reels, but also TikTok. The basic problem with a creator fund is this: the money gets split between existing creators in the fund. The more creators, the less per creator. Basically, I'm running out of private savings. Here is the basic problem: my productivity. I often am on it for weeks, working non-stop in my work time, but often also out of it. My main focus is video, but due to me not properly figuring the nutrition out, still hovering way too high in body fat for my taste. These are just personal issues which actually don't really fit in here. Because if I would be a professional, I would just record regardless. And for my baseline normal, I do have somewhat of an incentive to not do the exact thing I need to do, which is record videos, obviously. Alternatives I therefore considered. Working for bigger YouTubers means I could probably learn lots, but also means I would be using my time for other projects than my own business. Of course, I can still see this, and it also would become income for my business since I can still do this. And it also would become income for my business since I also can do external client projects, for example. What keeps me from doing this are mostly two reasons. One, if I manage to be on a high level of productivity, then client work doesn't make sense since it doesn't really scale and also doesn't have the catalog effect whereby you earn for old work similar to stock image or stock media. Two, me not managing my life in a way to show up to work properly and getting a bad reputation. Getting a bad reputation is a different factor entirely, which is again connected to the quality of my content. Recently, I finally launched a Fiverr account. I had been dabbling in the idea for a bit, but never had been able to bring it public. I just charged the preset of $5, mostly in order to get into the workflow, but also to possibly get reviews. Going forward, so the Fiverr account was for voiceovers. I actually made one. Going forward, since I only restarted YouTube with the new non-watermarked shorts recently, last week a few subscribers came into my world. TikTok recently has been blocking my IP repeatedly, which made it harder and harder, took longer and longer to post. Instagram and Facebook seem now finally accepting of all my video formats, previously 9:18. Screen recordings on my phone, my Galaxy S10, couldn't be uploaded. Since distribution takes a lot of my time, probably ranging between 25 to 75%, I need to either automate the distribution process, ideally a tool would allow me to upload to all platforms simultaneously, or I will again seek out distribution companies, example Jellysmack. I already applied but did not meet the thresholds for acceptance. My ideal workflow would be this: recording longs and shorts, me uploading them to one backend, the primary platform, then another person agency workflow automation, copying them to all other platforms, which would make sense, or the platforms that make sense. In general, there are two big risks: me doing something that might get me cancelled or getting cancelled. There are also privacy concerns once starting a family, etc. Also, a reason why I currently don't run around filming my house or me working out. Basically, as soon as you film in any public area with image reversal, you might be located, which might not be ideal, especially if one assumes that a certain percentage of the audience might not like you, one of your channels, etc. Or something you just said. Other than that, I will keep doing this in some form or another. What might change is the type of work, the type of content, the platforms I post to. Working for other creators doing other client work might become part of my business. If I manage to outsource the copy content to other platform distribution work, then I might free up about the hours I could then work for others, despite having an otherwise identical output and workflow. I also already multiple times thought about removing myself from the videos, since this is probably one of the biggest risks of being a creator on camera. Everybody only has one face. If I say only one tiny thing that might cause me to not be able to otherwise have a normal life, then this might be a big risk. Too big of a risk to carry in the long term. There is a reason many celebrities, for example, don't show their children, because it is known that their parents are wealthy, and if in addition the child's face is known, it might not be able to lead a normal life. And the combination of wealthy parents and publicly known children might be interesting to criminals. This has become something else already. It has become a way of living. So I'm now talking not about criminals, but about me producing content. A way of sparing my friends hours of me talking monologues, because I now have multiple outlets for what I think, have read, came up with, learned. As long as I live, I will probably consume ideas and concepts and books and whatever. Then I process these, and then I need to write it down, talk it down, anyway in one form or another. Otherwise, I lose it. I already wrote longer and longer entries in my digital notebooks. Now I just make them public, possibly reaching, helping people. Maybe also not. I thereby also create a direct link between what I learn and what I create. Maybe also within a few hours, maybe also the next day. I can learn to create. This might be the most genuine thing, the most genius thing about this. No matter what I do, I can always write or talk about it. Therefore, unless I decide to take these notes private again, maybe also trying to get them shorter again, I will generate content anyway. What I call a channel is basically an interest of mine, and I share what I discover, learn along the way. As I picked up studying in 2018 again, despite making exactly zero progress in terms of study credits, I also am in the process of creating a study channel for economic science, but probably in German, since the program is in German, using that feedback loop and recently shortening it, since I allowed myself to shorten the possible schedule to daily and still stack of finished content is empty. I created a cycle that also drives me and shares a lot of the same goals as me. Incentive alignment, you might call this. In other words, since I am writing and speaking, the more interesting, smarter, knowledgeable and efficient I become, the better the videos might do. And also be. But the better also I do, as cliche as it sounds. I created this system this way. No editing videos, not adding music, not editing videos, not adding music, not replying to viral videos. Every piece of content, at least on the channels, which I call share, are things from my stream of consciousness in one way or another, but taken out, materialized in one or multiple forms of media and set public. It survives me, my censoring, if it survives my censoring and other filters. In my eyes, I am just starting, might only be scratching the surface of what I think I might be capable of. All my channels combined barely have any following at all. And my real view count might be a little over 1 million at this point, since I stopped tracking TikTok, the main driver, manually. I still need to figure out how to make money with this. Plan is to 1. Automated ads, 2. Offering maybe additional services and products like Notion templates, for example, if I make a video about Notion, and 3. Possibly turning on again Patreon or similar services. Patreon. I already had a few pages for a few channels already, but only a certain percentage of the audience will probably even consider donating, paying on Patreon. One idea is also to make all content free forever, to not hide some behind a paywall or donation wall. Of course, there needs to be some kind of compromise, which I still haven't figured out really. A few months ago, I set all the Patreon pages to not live, since I hadn't yet figured out the concept. For all channels, and also felt more again that begging for money, or at least that's what you could call it, was not something I wanted to do. In addition, there is also an additional responsibility for posting quality and quantity. I paid for daily videos. Where are they? Which format might be ideal for turning posts like these into videos? Just reading with screen recording as I'm doing now. The problem is that the visual information via images might be useful, but overlaying the images would only be possible in editing unless I find a live setup. Whether I want and in which way to do podcast, I could just interview the guests I am most interested in and use a sister channel of, let's say, this one, and just have the podcast conversation. Everything else that I don't even know I have to figure out, maybe this time not all at once, but along the way.